Welcome back to another episode of the Successful Driver Podcast here in the Clear Simple Used Truck Buying Studio, and having a conversation here with CG Soza of Soza Trucking. CG, my man, excited to talk to you. Thank you for spending some time with us today.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're thrilled to be talking with you, and we got a lot to cover with you. And but kind of first off, we just like to ask. I want to hear your story, your story in the trucking industry. Just want to hear a little about you and how you've got to this point.
Awesome. Well, it's a family deal. I'm actually the third generation driver. My grandfather drove, way back in the early 30s and so forth. My dad actually started driving when he was 16. Had a GMC V8 gas with a 20-foot bed on it. That was the big dog of the industry back then. And I believe that was, that would have been in 1952, I believe. And they were hauling hay out of Arizona, and then, started doing piggybacks back and forth from California, the quote unquote lettuce tramps for the old timers that would know what that means. And, so that's how that came about. And it's funny because my dad met my mom at a truck stop. She was a waitress there and in Tucson. And, they got together, moved out to California. And then me and my brother came along, and I've grown up in the trucking since, I was a baby, really. The fellow drivers my dad had would joke around saying he put diesel in my baby bottle because I was on that truck constantly every summer break. I mean, that was my thing. Summer break came along, I got to go in the truck with dad, and I was a happy camper. And listen, it's just literally, it's been in my blood. I took a little break. Back in 2002, 2000. But you can take the driver out of the truck, but you can't take the truck out of the driver. So I ventured back towards it, and kind of here we are in this, present day of what I'm doing now with hauling cars and stuff. And so that's kind of the history of how I got into trucking. And now I'm proud to say, my oldest boy has joined me, so he'll be the fourth generation in our family to drive truck and do his thing. And I have two little boys, 4 and 3, that, I mean, we stop, I go outside, they're like right there. They want to climb in the truck. So I don't think they're going to have a prayer. So I think the Soza name's going to live on in the trucking industry for quite a while.
Well, yeah, I mean, your entire life is the trucking industry. Like, you don't know anything different than being around this industry. So, I mean, it sounds like, because I mean, you started with your grandpa, so, I mean, you don't really know much outside of this industry as far as, life without it. So I'm very interested, you've got to see it for your entirety of your life. And, what do you think, your third generation, what do you think makes a successful truck driver?
Well, there's a bunch of different components, but, the main thing, I honestly, and is that you really got to enjoy the trucking industry. Guys that come in and say, oh, well, I can make all this money just by driving from here to here. That's a job, but it's not, a successful career like what I've made it. Obviously, you got to keep grinding, because there's been a lot of ups and downs of the trucking industry in the last, 30 years that I've been involved in it. And it's just, I mean, it's just plain and simple. It's, you got to be in your blood. It's kind of more of a lifestyle than just a job or a paycheck to really be successful at it. It's one of those things you just got to jump in with both feet, embrace the whole thing and go for it, and just keep on it. It's with the way the trucking industry is changing so much, especially lately in the last, 10 years with all the ARB and all that other stuff. It's, if you don't really love what you're doing and keep it on top of it, it's going to swallow you up and spit you out. That's really the bottom line.
Absolutely. It's great advice. So I want to hear a little bit about your business now. What are you up to? Are you managing, a small fleet? Is it just you? What's your situation look like with Soza Trucking right now?
Well, right now, when I first started, I was driving for my dad. My dad had a small fleet of really owner operators. And we did a lot of flatbed work, that sort of thing. It's kind of what I grew up on, was doing flatbed work with doubles, hay, freight, that sort of thing. When my dad decided to retire and we kind of decided to get rid of that, I went and started doing dry vans. I did a little bit of reefer, stuff like that, and just didn't quite fit into my personality, I should say. And now, well, back in 2016, I bought a truck. My KW that I have now was originally a 2-axle, and I got leased on with a guy that doing commodities with bottom dumps, clay, stuff like that. And that didn't fit my personality either. It was way too dirty for me. It just didn't like the gig, didn't like the pay, that sort of thing. So I was going to go back to doing flatbed stuff, and that didn't work out. I found myself out of work for, I don't know, probably about a month and a half. And funny, on Facebook, a friend of mine I went to high school with was talking about cars, gave him a call. We talked for a couple hours, and by the end of the conversation, I started pulling one of his trailers at the end of the week. And that's how I got into moving cars. And so I started doing that, really enjoyed the gig. I'm like, okay, so I stretched my truck out to a 3-axle to help me out with, doing the cars. At the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, I became business partners with them. And that didn't go well. That lasted only 2 years, almost to the day. After the first year, knowing, how many cars we're moving, I'm thinking, numbers ain't adding up. That's one of the things you asked me earlier about being successful. You really got to know your numbers, where the money's going. And then in the second year, after doing a lot of investigating, long story short, he was taking money out the back end of it, and nothing was coming towards my end. So we went our separate ways, and I stayed with the cars. I bought one of the trailers out from the company, and I started doing my own thing. So that was in January of 2017. Now here, early 22, I have 4 Cottrell car haulers, trailers. I have 3 owner operators, and then my truck. I just bought a new W900. I actually picked it up a couple weeks ago, which is in the shop now, getting a few touches to it that
nice.
That I, I won't lie, I'm making it pretty. And so hopefully I'll have that done before my truck show in June, and we'll kind of unveil it there. And I have a new trailer coming for that, so that'll make number 5. And we're rolling. We've been rolling like that ever since 2017. It's funny when the money quits going out the back door, how much money you have to spend on equipment and stuff like that. So yeah.
What's the difference between, managing one truck as an OO and 5 trucks? What's the difference from a business perspective and from your perspective?
A lot less sleep.
Yeah.
I guess the main difference is when you're just dealing with yourself, you know what you can do, you know what you can handle, and you dispatch yourself accordingly. When you have other drivers or owner operators, they don't necessarily do things the way you do. So you have to learn how to dispatch for each driver. I think that's one of the biggest differences between that and having somebody else you have to worry about. What I know I could do, not necessarily what somebody else could do. So I have to dispatch accordingly. And sometimes that can be difficult with my mentality on, being an owner operator as long as I have, knowing what you got to do to make money. It's a little frustrating for me sometimes because I'm thinking, okay, this will work here, this will work there. It works out great. And then it doesn't go that way, So that's probably the biggest challenge is learning how to dispatch according to each individual driver's personality and work ethic to make everything work.
Well, that's really, really good stuff. And there's definitely people that listen to that are in those shoes. So I just really wanted to ask you that. I know that you've been through some stuff in the last 5 years. I know you've kind of, turned it into something beautiful in some ways. If you wouldn't mind kind of hearing about your son and that story, if you mind sharing, I'd love to let people kind of hear about what you're doing now and some of the stuff that's happened in the last few years.
No, not a problem. Well, in September of 2016, my son and my wife were actually heading to a tutoring for my son's dyslexia. My youngest son was diagnosed with dyslexia in 2014. And so the only place there was to help him was in the nearby town of Denair, which is about 25 miles north of where we live. On the way to the tutoring program, my wife had a seizure and lost control of the car, and both of them were killed on the freeway on the way to their tutoring. This was in September of 2016. Yeah, it's a pretty downer. It's something else when you lose two people in your life instantly like that, especially a child. That's probably been one of my biggest obstacles in my life to get through that. I don't ever say get over it. The best advice I got was from another friend of mine who lost a child, and he said, "Look, don't think you're going to get over it, because you're not. You learn to live with it." And he goes, the sooner you accept how to learn to live with it, the better off you'll be. And that was the best advice I ever got. And so that's what I did. And part of the way of learning to live with it is keeping their memory alive, keeping my son's memory alive, and doing something, in his, presence of, the whole reason why he was on the freeway at that time, so nobody else would have to, kind of go through that. So with that being said, and with that, what has happened, the Soza Memorial Truck Show has come to life. My son was, he loved going on the truck with me. I still got pictures of him, helping me load. His 18th birthday was just this last Monday, and a memory came up on my Facebook with him in the truck with me, doing the trucker wave. And so it just kind of, it's stuff like that makes you smile. It's like, what I'm doing is the right thing to do, in his honor. And so the Soza Memorial Truck Show, last year was our first year. Everything I'm doing now is for dyslexia. Merced County does not recognize dyslexia as a problem, which obviously I totally disagree with. I have dyslexia myself. So I figure what better way is to try to bring not only awareness, but help to students in Merced County where I live, so they don't have to go travel, to go get tutoring and special help and stuff like that. So that's what we're doing. And that's the whole reason why I'm doing this truck show is basically for that, to help kids in our community that don't have the resources to go out of town, don't have the money to pay out of their pocket to get evaluations and to get tutoring to get that straightened out. So it's all been revolving around that. So
anybody that wanting to get involved with this, how can they get involved with this charity?
Easy. With one, you can shoot me an email, Soza Memorial Truck Show at hotmail.com. Pretty simple. We have our website up now. The website's mainly geared towards the truck show currently right now. And that's Merced or Soza Memorial Truck Show.com. But the easiest way would be just shoot me an email, or you can go on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, Soza Memorial Truck Show. Real simple, all the same. To get a hold of me in any of those three avenues, we are the email is at Soza Memorial Truck Show at Yahoo. So okay. I've been corrected by my better half in the background. Thank goodness for her. She keeps me straight. So yeah, if anybody wants to come out and help, again, if you want to come out and see the truck show, if you want to bring your truck out, last year we had over 100 trucks last year for the first show, which I was ecstatic with. Once we got done paying all the bills and everything else, we were just over $19,000. So that $19,000 now has completely made us legit. We are now have the AJ Soza Dyslexia Foundation, which we just got our paperwork from the state on that. So that's a completely legit corporation company. We are filing for our nonprofit 501(c)(3). Hopefully I'll have that done before this next truck show, which will be great, because then that way we can really hit the ground running. So now that all that red tape and stuff is done, hopefully this year we can get some kids in and get them help and get them evaluated and get them on the right track, especially for their schooling and everything else. So
when is the next show?
The next show is June 24th, 25th, and 26th.
Wonderful.
So last weekend of June, Merced County Fairgrounds.
Well, hopefully we can get some people out there, and hopefully some people will listen to this and want to, take action. CG, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your insight. Really appreciate your time, and best of luck.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate it. And, it's nice that, people want to come and find out, more insight of what we do in the trucking industry. And I'm glad I can help out with that.
Well, you absolutely have today, and it means a lot. That is going to do it for another episode of the Successful Driver Podcast. Thank you to CG Soza, Soza Trucking. We'll catch you later.